Hey everybody, greetings from Santa Barbara, and I'm here with Paksy Plackis-Cheng and founder of Impactmania. And Paxi is joining us today for a session
from my house,
from her lovely home in Santa Barbara
during office hours.
And Paksy, today's an exciting day because she's launching her new book, Women of Impact.
Yes.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we do that, Paksy, what is Impactmania?
Impactmania was built because I was frustrated. It presents a true narrative of our world, because as you look at our global media and even our national one, it gives you a one-sided view of what our world is about, what happens in our world, and the players. And so with Impactmania, I really wanted single-handedly to do something about that, because as I was going in my own backyard here in beautiful Santa Barbara, and as I was traveling around, I saw that there was a real gap between what I saw, very meaningful projects and ventures and people like yourselves, versus to the stories that were in the news. And so I'm not blind to what's happening in Syria. I would rather talk to the people who are doing something about it. So,
okay, wonderful. And Impactmania features all different kinds of people creating change in the world. Men, women?
Men, women, people who drive cultural, social, and economic impacts.
Wonderful. And so today is the launch of your new book, Women of Impact.
It's a little crazy.
And
why am I here? What am I doing?
And this is your second book.
It's my second book.
So what was your first book?
So it's like after you do one book and you go, I'll never do a second one. I don't know what happened. Here's the book. And to show you, it's not even a dummy. It's like the real thing. So I've interviewed now the last 3-4 years, more than 300 impact makers, from ambassadors to Grammy Award winners to, gosh, you name it, to people like you driving impact in their own community. And I started focusing on women 2.5 years ago, and these are 130 of these interviews. Just with the like. Excerpts of the interviews, full complete interviews can be found on impactmania.com. These are the excerpts, because if I didn't do that, this book would have been 1,000+ pages.
Yeah, your interviews were quite extensive.
Oh my gosh. And somebody told me, oh, well, the book then would be, because I captured more than 1 million words, the book would be then 1,000+ pages. And I was like, what? My first book was 70 pages, and it was just such a birth that this is 300 pages.
Okay.
But I never thought I would do a second book.
Yeah. And did you have to find a publisher? Did you self-publish?
So very grateful to the Art Design and Architecture Museum. It's a co-production. So Impactmania and ADNA published it. And it's available online on Amazon. Ebook.
Okay.
And then a print version.
And then what's really special about today is that there's actually a reception this evening with University of Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara, right?
Yes.
To do an exhibit. You have an exhibit that's going to be ongoing,
right.
Correct?
So the project has expanded because I have brilliant interns at the ADNA Museum at UCSB, and they put an exhibition together, and also a panel discussion, which is more like speed dating, because it's really not going to be a panel discussion anymore. Georgina is one of the women of impact, so she's part of it. And there will be 23 women traveling in from 8 US cities, all the way from East Coast to West Coast, plus New Zealand, Brazil, China, the Netherlands, and so we have representation from 5 continents. And I have one of the women, Yanling, here. She traveled in from China to be with us.
Hello.
Come. She's like my own audience.
Who's watching our Facebook Live. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Yanling. Thanks to Paksy. I'm here in her beautiful house, and listening to 2 beautiful women talking about things that matters. And I really feel that's the good part of Women of Impact.
Yes.
Right? And also we see so much lives, and pretty much that when you guys are sitting here, I was watching you right there. I thought really the social media maybe needed more content like this. Okay.
Thank
You
you.
be in charge of that. I already did this. I need a break.
But so what happens going forward? Because you featured all these amazing women that are doing amazing things in the world. You have the exhibit that's going to be ongoing.
Right.
You have the book. And so it's now a topic of amplification. What's your vision going forward for this project?
There's a few women of impact who want to bring this to other cities because we've interviewed in 30 countries. A few women of impact have said we want to host this in other cities. So New York City is next, and we're talking about Amsterdam, where I'm originally from, and where you live now, and hopefully on every continent. And another beauty of this whole project has been, and that's the most important part, I would say, is not that I only feature these impact makers, but that people can connect with these people. So we have been able to connect people with projects. And so you're not all alone working, on, changing our climate or cleaning up the ocean, that there's actually others out there. And how do we connect people together and projects together so we can bring all our individual projects to a next level?
Yeah. And let's talk about trying to drive like massive change alone. Because I don't think that's probably one very common factor in a lot of the women that you featured. I know you and I personally talked about, there's this vision you have for your life or for the impact you want to have. And then there's the realities of like time and resources and what you can actually do within your own capacity as like one person. And so that can seem daunting, maybe for anybody that's watching that has something they're really passionate about, and they want to do something, but they don't know how to, and then they might feel like, it's just me, like what's that gonna actually do? But it's possible, right? Like here's a testimony.
Well,
I think there's a lot of testimony in there. Now, granted, it makes it a lot harder.
Yes.
So let's talk about that and how to potentially build this community up a bit more so that we can support each other.
I think you touched on something really, really important. And that is, we have to start connecting people together. You have to find your tribe without being tribal. And Yang-Ling and I just spoke about this. We have to rethink sisterhood, especially people who may not necessarily be of your normal network. So maybe not your immediate friends, but friends of your friends. You have to find people who think differently, who don't look like you, who don't talk like you, bring a whole different network into your sphere, have a different, maybe even religious or cultural background, because social issues, they're so complex, we can't possibly solve them on our own. And even if we could, what's the fun of that? Who wants to be Superwoman, honestly? That's so lonely, right? We have to.
It is lonely.
We have to band together.
Yeah.
I am not in favor of Superwoman. I always say this is not a one-woman show. We have to collaborate. And I know that's a buzzword, but I've seen that once you reach out and you ask for help and you connect with others, you'll see that they're struggling with things too. They have challenges the same way that you do. Mm-hmm. And I have interviewed Academy Award winners, and their boat may look different, but they're dealing with the same ocean, and they're dealing with finding their place in the world just like you and me. So don't fret. You have to find others to band with.
Yeah, to believe in your vision as well, to be able to amplify the message. And then there's like the very real aspect of scalability.
Yes.
As one person, you can only scale something to a certain point.
Right.
So let's talk about the collaboration it took to get this project off the ground. That's pretty massive.
I can't even name everybody because I know I'll forget people. Look at my acknowledgements page. Look at this. See this? A whole page. When you go to the movies and you see these credits and they don't stop, that's really what it takes. So my dad, he passed away yesterday. And he always said, it takes 10 years off stage to produce something for 10 minutes on stage. And that is totally true. I've realized that and learned so many great things from my father. And also that you shouldn't be scared to ask, people who vaguely to support your cause, to get involved. People love to be asked. And, if they say no, that's their loss, not yours. So I would say reach out and talk to people, especially in this day and age. You can, and this shows you, like I'm not Paksy New York Times, right? I have no business talking to all these people. So you need to reach out and you need to talk to people.
And you had some really high profile folks that you interviewed. Yeah. And then you got support from the UN at one point as well.
I was featured, some of my work was featured at the UN. Yeah. I was invited to go to India and I shot a little video. Again, I have no business being a filmmaker. I shot a video and that was then subsequently picked up by the United Nations and featured at their Global Compact Conference 2017. And then subsequently I was invited for other things at the UN. And so I'm just a testament of, yes, you can.
Yeah.
And yes, you should.
Exactly. So for anybody watching this at home, that's something that we're, some part of this dialogue is really connecting with them. Is there anything that our community can do to better support you?
Oh gosh, I am so bad with all of this social media. So please do connect with me because I am on all the social media. And I'll tell you why, because this is what happens. On all our social media, we get outraged about an issue and we start commenting and we start, liking or sharing because it matters, right? Because we're so upset about it. We need to do the same thing for things and stories that matter. So all the stories that I put out about these women, if you start connecting with me and liking it and sharing it, we have at least a counter. And sharing something hopeful and sharing stories with people and projects that are meaningful. So I hope you do that. That's free. So connect with me and help me on social media. And then also the book is available. Share the stories. And if we're coming to other cities, I'm sure you'll let your audience know. And then hopefully I get to meet some of you in person because this is a little weird. Talking to this screen and I'm seeing this.
I love that she agreed to do this. And then she's like, so how does this work?
It's my first Facebook Live. Or
it's mine too. I'm my second.
Your second? See?
This is good though. This is wonderful. This is good. So we really like to promote real women, real stories. Okay. It's so much of life tries to what people see is like this perfect scripted package that's not real.
Oh, you can't script me.
Right? So
that would be so hard.
I think especially in these creative projects, like there's so many iterations and there's so much you start off with one idea and it evolves. I asked you before we started, did you always envision that this would be a book?
No.
And you did it, right? So how did it get to that point?
At some point, somebody said, all the interviews are available free really online, and I don't take advertising. I'm very stubborn. I don't take advertising. I don't do sponsored articles. So they are available for anybody to, it's been incredible really because we've had the US consul take one of our interviews and put it on their Facebook feed. We've appeared in the Pakistani Tribune, that I've never read because one of our interviews, Harvard Business School picked up one of our interviews. And so I just see it as, we need to share this. And somebody said, this is important. You have to take your time in creating a book because then you will do these women justice. And that's all I'm in for, to do people and their projects justice. Because at the end of the day, selfishly, they work for a better world for me, right? Yeah. So this is the least that I could do.
Yeah. Now let's talk a little bit about the stories that get shared then in the news and social media. Because I agree, it's especially right now, there's a lot of doom and gloom and negative views. But there's a lot of good that's happening in the world. And there's a lot of people that are working very, very hard to work on all of these issues. And so I love your approach. It's not disregarding what's happening, but just sharing a different side of it.
Right. It's discussing the same issues, but from a different light. And what really frustrates me personally is we talk about women, but usually we recycle the same names, right? Because it's always the same people. But there's so many more people who are doing things in our world, and especially in your own backyard. You will not hear of people quietly, toiling away, making the community better and healthier. Then I really don't think women's work is valued as much as it should be. So first of all, we need to acknowledge the work that they do. And then second, we need to have a better look at what is really critical to the health of our society and of our world. And that means that we have to rethink value and we have to rethink power. And I think women are so powerful, we just don't know it, or people don't see it that way.
Right. Yeah, let's touch on that a little bit more, because with Impactmania, you feature men and women.
Yes.
With this book, it was just women.
Yes.
And so when you look at a changemaker, what are some of those big differences you've seen with some of the men you've profiled and some of the women now that you've profiled?
It's incredible, because I have seen that women can be working on global issues and are truly not just impacting, you and me in our community, but the world at large, and they won't talk about it. We don't know. They don't put themselves out there. And I feel that's a pity. I mean, and when you ask them, they go, oh, well, I'm just doing my work, and it's, oh yeah, I guess it's very special, or they have no idea of. I'll just give you an example. I met this woman. She's met President Obama 3 times. I think only his wife that year met him more, right? So this woman, Mi-Young Chun, she's a scientist and an entrepreneur, and she's done incredible work. She is actually the godmother of the Brain Initiative. She's doing research on Alzheimer, and who knows about her? Like, I didn't know about her. Right. I didn't even know about the initiative. And
has she been featured anywhere? Maybe like scientific journals that people don't see.
Yeah,
not mainstream.
Yeah, MIT, things like that. But it's so funny, because President Obama mentioned her work at the State of the Union, and nobody knows that's a woman who's behind it. Right. Oftentimes that happens that way. I have another woman I interviewed, and we had a meeting in New York City just the other week, and she said, look, the New York Times finally is profiling somebody. For example, the chef this is the problem. His name is Eric Ripert. He's like some famous chef. He goes on TV, etc. And he is the chef for a very famous New York restaurant. But guess what? It's a woman who owns the restaurant, a woman who started the restaurant. And maybe she doesn't want all that PR, right? And the chef is important, etc. But everybody knows him, and nobody knows the person who actually decades ago founded it or started the restaurant, made it big, and he works for her. I mean, we don't know about her, but we know all about him. Hi. Hey, see, this is the beauty when you do something in your house during office hours. They're like random people walking through the screen.
Random?
Her sons. So what can we share with women watching this that are doing amazing things? Because the same thing happens in our community as well. There's so many amazing women that their stories aren't necessarily being told in the mainstream, or it's being told by the same people. So what advice would you give to someone that's definitely making an impact, driving a change, but somehow they're still a bit invisible?
Send me a note. I want to know. Tell the story. Just simply tell the story. Start sharing the story. Start talking about women who are doing things. Ask them how you can support them. Get involved. Not everybody has to start their own thing. I really actually think we should support each other more. So to your point that it's more scalable and you have more, support. But yeah, look up the women in your own community who are working on things and start asking them, how they got there, what they're doing, if they would like your support, how you can volunteer, get involved. And from one thing will lead to another. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
You've seen this.
Yeah. And in terms of just one more, like the comparison between men and women that you've profiled, do you feel like the men have more resources to go and do what they're trying to do?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You see it in the stats, right? They came up with stats again that women businesses actually generate more revenue, but they're still grossly underfunded, especially with VC funds.
I know we talked about that as well. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's an ongoing challenge. I don't want to disregard or pretend like that is not the case, because resources can be a lot of things. Resources can be having a team to support you or help you. It could be the funding to go do, because some of these projects are pretty massive, and require legitimate funding. The other aspect is like cultural as well, right? Because you featured women from all over the world. So certain countries, for women to go out and do certain things is much more challenging.
Absolutely.
Or not tolerated.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with risk to their lives sometimes, right?
Yeah. So it's just really, again, kind of giving yourself credit and giving women credit that here's a book full, and there's many more examples, but of women doing incredible things, but at what odds, right? If you compare apples to apples, it's not a level playing field quite yet.
No, it isn't. And that's why I'm a strong believer of sisterhood, really in a way that, okay, let's stop fighting about that one seat at the conference table, and let's start making more seats. And let's try to help each other rise up.
Yeah, because there is, I think, that misconception right now. It's that there are limited seats at the table. So if one woman gets a spot, then that somehow is terrible for you. But you have to look at it, I think, from a bigger picture, because if there's somebody on that side of the table now that understands you better, that is, can relate to you in some way, or hopefully is a champion to bring more women onto that side of the table, that's how I think things should be approached versus, oh no, well, she got it, or
like OTV and now BrandQuest, right? You can create more seats, platform as well. So definitely more seats.
And you know what? This is not only for the women, right? It's really for the men too. Women can create, or men can create more seats too. So it's
exactly.
And I have had incredible male supporters throughout my career. So I've seen poor women supporters, and coming from women, and I've seen great supporters who were men. So it's not a male versus female thing. I mean,
yeah, that's really important.
Yeah,
we
and that's
just way of doing feminine way, with collaborating with. We're not trying to create men and women division at all.
That's
it
my
might be,
personal opinion.
And it might be a little bit hard to hear for those on the screen.
Live. Yeah,
something really new to us.
But that's something that is also really important to talk about, is that this isn't just the role of women to help lift each other up. That, because we have men in our community as well, help you be part of the change. This is not...
no, we can't do without the men, right? So please, I'm advocating for, yes, women, we should, and this is your time now, and be ballsy enough to go out and do something. But we absolutely need the support of men. And it's so funny. I said the other day, I hope I can say this correctly again. I promote women, but I love men. So it's not I'm not against. We shouldn't be pitted against each other.
No, for sure. Well, I'm really excited for today, for the opening and the reception.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, and we'll share a link with all of you where the book's available. And if you want to connect with Paksy or anything else, we'll go ahead and put all those links up for everyone there.
And Georgina.
Oh, well,
because you're,
She entrepreneur.
She ventures. Yeah. But for anybody that's new to office hours, that's watching this maybe for the first time, this is a casual setting. So if you're ever expecting some very scripted anything, you're never going to get that on office hours. At least not for right now.
Who's the worst person to have if it was scripted?
The intention of office hours was really to allow our community to connect with amazing women that are doing amazing things in the world, that can share wisdom and lessons learned of the type of work that they've done, that hopefully can, be as a resource if you're maybe trying to do something similar, or just also elevating the presence of more role models in our community as well. Right. So that's the intention of office hours. We're going to have a lot more of them. We've had 2 so far, so Paksy's our 3rd. Next week, we're an outdoor retailer in Denver. So if anybody watching is curious of how the outdoor industry works and who goes and all these things, we're going to actually have office hours with Alyssa Sears, who's founder of Adventures Academy. And she's actually hosting a tent pitch event that's merging the natural space and food, beverage, product space and the outdoor space. And that's something that's not been done before. So stay tuned for next week.
Love Alyssa.
We will tell you what days and all that soon. But thanks for joining us today. Thank you, Paksy.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
Yeah, we're just really excited to share more stories from the book as well. And
yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Happy Thursday. Is that what day it is today?
Yes.
Yeah.
19th.
Happy Thursday. Thanks. Bye.